Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the double feature edition of the concession stand. This is a addition to the show that I haven't done in a while. This is a episode where I review two movies that I just can't bring myself to dedicate a full show to each show. I mean, to each film that I review. So I normally do a double feature edition when there's two movies that I've seen that I'll just say, you know what, I'll just wrap up their reviews in one show. And these were two films that I was highly anticipating, and I must say, I enjoyed both of them for what they were. The two movies that we're reviewing for this episode is VHS Beyond and Mr. Crocket. These are two shows that were on, or two movies that were on streaming services released over the past weekend. Well, at least Mr. Crocket was released this weekend, and VHS Beyond was released last weekend on the 4th. And I was super excited for both of these for different reasons, and I pretty much got what I wanted. I got what I pretty much expected out of these films. Let's start off with VHS Beyond, which is a found footage science fiction horror anthology film. And this is the 7th installment, 9th overall, of the VHS franchise. This is a franchise that I was introduced to by a good friend of mine who passed away a few years back. But he introduced me to this franchise with the very first VHS film. And from that moment on, I was hooked. I just loved it because I'm a huge fan of anthology films. This goes all the way back to Twilight Zone, the movie. And that's my first exposure to a anthology film. And from there on, whenever I get anthologies, I'm all in. I love it on television, and I definitely love it in films. And this was kind of a fresh take on the anthology film genre, especially when you're dealing with horror and you're dealing with found footage. You know, found footage is a subgenre in horror that took off after the Blair Witch Project and so on and so forth, you know, with the Paranormal Activity films and all this here, and every other film you can think of the last 20 years revolving around horror. But VHS found a way to do it differently and make it fresh and keep it fresh for these 7 installments in this franchise. And so this go around, when they announced Beyond, I was like, okay, where are we going with this? I didn't know anything about it. With films like this, especially I'm a fan of, I try to stay away from spoilers or plot points that would spoil it. I want to go into it fresh and be excited by it. Well, this particular film is presented in 5 segments built around the frame narrative of the form of a documentary, with interviews from experts in the field of extraterrestrials and digital effects. And this film basically is set around UFOs and aliens and all this here. And I'm like, man, so we're going to get all 5 segments pretty much revolve around it, with the exception of one. But even with that one, it was exciting. It was still good. This is a phenomenal addition to the franchise. Just like the other films in the VHS franchise, it has everything that you can ask for. The blood, the gore, the scares, the claustrophobic feel, being as though this is found footage. So it's kind of like a first person shooter video game in some instances, especially that first segment. I think it was Abduction was that one, and that was with the police going into not Abduction, it was Stalk, and the police hunting down these monsters, or this monster, which turned out to be an alien who is kidnapping babies and stuff. Man, this is cool the way they're shooting this, the way they're filming this with the body cams of the police officers. Oh, this is so awesome. And all of the other additions, segments in this film, I think each and every one of them work. None of them did I sit back and say, oh, well, they could have kept that one. One, it was a couple in there that weren't as good as the others, but all of the segments are good. These segments were directed by, in no particular order, but Jay Chill, Jordan Downey, Christian and Justin Long. Yes, that Justin Long. Justin Menendez, Kate Siegel, who is an actress. She gave us a direction here on one of the segments, and all of them were good. The Justin Long one, that was probably the most disturbing out of them all. All of them are disturbing, but what made that one so disturbing, that was the one about the fur babies. I think it was the name of it, where this woman was kidnapping people. She's a dog lover and she despises human beings. So she kidnaps people and turns them into dogs, trains them up to be dogs. And it was so weird and out of place in this particular edition of VHS, but it worked. It absolutely worked. I enjoyed this. This was a good watch. If you're a fan of this franchise, it fits right into this franchise. Even if you haven't seen any of the VHS films, if you're a horror lover, if you're a found footage lover, this is the film for you. VHS Beyond, which is currently on Shudder, the streaming service, gets a letter grade of an A. I thought it was a really good horror, right on time. Get you geared up for the spooky season, for the Halloween season, and man, what a disturbing movie. Just like all of them are disturbing, but yeah, this one fits right in the disturbing category quite well. Our second and final film on this edition of the Concession Stand is a film that is a Hulu original, and I saw the trailer for this maybe about a month ago, and I immediately just like leaped out of my chair in excitement, because as a black man growing up and watching films like this, horror movies like this, or mainstream movies in general, all you saw was white. That's all you saw. And if you saw a black person in a film like this, they were the first one killed. And so to see a film like this with an all black cast, it just brought me joy. And so the only thing missing was to actually watch the movie. And this film is Mr. Crocket, which is currently on Hulu. It's a Hulu original. This is a film about a mother who embarks on a quest to rescue her son from a demonic children's show host who is kidnapping kids. I'm like, okay, man. And when you see the trailer, it's this Mr. Rogers kind of Barney, that type of kid show host, Mr. Crocket, who is about as disturbing as the dude is just creepy looking. It's creepy looking, and I was like, man, let's go with it. Nobody smiles that much. This film is directed by Brandon Expe, and it stars Jerrica Hinton, I hope I'm saying her name right, and Elvis Nolasco as Mr. Crocket. This is a very graphic horror film. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting how graphic it is. Very gory in parts and very disturbing in parts. This is right where it needs to be on streaming. It's not the greatest of films, but if you go into it knowing what you're going to get is this cheesy kind of a just above Tubi level of film, you're gonna be all right. It's not Tubi level, but it's close. It's very close. Elvis Nolasco is the only reason to watch this movie as Mr. Crockett. He is awesome. I love him. If they're gonna make a franchise out of this, I can see him coming back. I mean, come on. They've made 1,000,001 Jasons, 1,000,001 Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger's and all this here. They can make another Mr. Crockett. I can see them spawning this into a franchise, to be honest with you. It's all right. It's watchable if you like cheesy horror films. This would sit perfectly in the late 80s, early 90s little window there. This would have been a colossal film. I think, me personally, it probably would have been released in theaters, and I think it would have made money. Unfortunately, 2024 is straight to streaming. It's not it's not a theatrical film. The budget on this film, if it was over $2 billion, I would have been shocked. It is very cheaply made, but I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. It's still watchable. They did the best they could with what they were given. The effects, the little practical effects that they had with the puppets and the monsters that they're dealing with was good. The problem comes in with this film. What hurts this film is the acting. Aside from Elvis Nolasco, and I hope I'm saying his name right. I know it's Elvis, but Nolasco. Aside from him, who knew what movie he was in, he knew exactly what movie he was in, and he chewed up every bit of scenery that he was in. Everybody else was kind of, Jerrica Hinton, she was decent. It was a couple of scenes there, especially in the beginning when we first introduced to her. Her acting was like powerful, and I was like, man, this is the type of movie we're gonna get, and then it kind of went off the rails there, but it's not her fault. I think it's the way this film was written, but she is a real good actress. I seen her on Grey's Anatomy. I think she was on Grey's Anatomy. She's a good actress, and so it wasn't her. Like I said, that scene in the beginning, very powerful, and I'm like, man, this movie is about to get some high praise from me. I probably should have said nothing, and I end up jinxing it, but it was what it was. I thought it was good. I thought her performance was good until then. But everybody else, the kids here, and look, I know they're kids. I get it. It's a known fact in Hollywood. You don't want to work with children. Children aren't the most reliable sources when it comes to acting, especially if they're inexperienced. And these children that are in this film, man, it just didn't work for me. And particularly the lead little kid who we followed throughout this film. It was, poor fella, he just couldn't act. They just told him, yeah, just run around and being a little idiot, and that's pretty much what he was. The acting was so bad from the kids, and it just took me out of it. I tried to look past the fact that look, Kevin, it's children, but I couldn't, I just couldn't because it was so bad. But regardless, it's an all right film. I think that it's good for what it is. If something you want to pop in one evening, one weekend, leading up to Halloween, want to watch a little scary movie with the family, this is it. Now, it is gory. You do see guts and people getting decapitated and heads blown off and stuff like that. So I wouldn't recommend little children. But, it's not the, Jason running around with a machete type thing. But yet and still, I think it is a very interesting film that could lead to a franchise. I would love to see Mr. Crockett again, terrorize these young children. My only suggestion, get some kids that can act. Mr. Crockett, which is currently on Hulu, gets a letter grade of a C-. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. And so to recap, VHS Beyond, which is on Shudder, gets a letter grade of an A. Mr. Crockett, which is currently on Hulu, gets a letter grade of a C-. I would like to know, Did you check out either one of these films or both? And how did you feel about them? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, you can listen and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand double feature edition. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of VHS Beyond and Mr. Crocket. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.